If you've ever even vaguely heard about Jak 2, then you know what its most iconic feature is. Dark Jak was the face of this game's marketing. Inside the story, he's the symbol of Jak's anger, and outside the story, he's the symbol of Jak 2's massive tone shift away from the first game. He is the beast within. He is the ultimate weapon. He is the personification of vengeance. And then when you actually play the game, you realize that more than any of those other things, he is a PNG in the corner of the screen. Hello everyone. Now just to get this out of the way, if you came here from my other videos, you might be saying, hey, this isn't Zelda. And you know what? You're right. So here's a quick update on that project. The link to the past video is progressing smoothly, but it's gonna be pretty big. It'll be a while before it gets done, so I decided to make some smaller videos in the meantime. These will be about whatever random game design thoughts I have, so that I can get more practice in video making, and also to stop tormenting my friends and family with my insane ramblings. Right, with that small update done, let's get to why most people are here and talk about Dark Jak. The problem is fairly self-explanatory. He's barely in the game. The fact he's not really in the story is easy enough to prove. He only shows up in 2 cutscenes and 1 scripted gameplay event. Within gameplay, though, he could show up as much or as little as the player wants. The problem is that, whatever the marketing might say, Dark Jak is just worse than regular Jak. You can't use your guns while in dark mode, it's melee only, which is not very good against enemies that have guns, especially since for some reason you can't roll while you're in dark mode. On top of that, Dark Jak's melee itself is just more limited than regular Jak's. First of all, you slip and slide all over the damn place when using it. That's alright in an open space, but it's not something you'll want to use on anything narrow. Secondly, 2 of Jak's melee moves, the ground pound and uppercut, are overridden by Dark Jak's 2 room clearing moves, which removes them as an option in regular melee combat. Which brings me to the final problem, which is that the most use you can get out of Dark Jak are those 2 room clearing moves. And to be fair, those are pretty useful, but the thing is, they also immediately bring you out of dark mode. All these elements combined result in what I said in the intro, where Dark Jak's entire role in the game is reduced to a PNG that sits in the corner of the screen until you need a room cleared. At that point, you go dark, and then immediately undark yourself. Technically, it's more efficient to try and score some melee kills before you bomb the room, but on the whole, it's not a system that encourages Dark Jak to be on the screen very much. Well, there's the problem, he's underutilized. Of course, that raises the question, how can you fix him? Again, the story is the easy one to fix, just have him be in the game more. There are plenty of cutscenes where Jak gets angry, so just have him transform or even partially transform. I can think of a few scenes that would be greatly enhanced with that, like the scene where Kira is ragging on Jak for working with crew. She brings up that she's heard Jak changes when he fights. Maybe she initially thinks it's like a metaphorical change? Then Jak transforms, has to hold himself back from hurting her, and runs away. Kira realizes that it's actually a very literal change, and one that Jak struggles with immensely. That in turn would let her empathize more, and would serve as a catalyst for her to make up with him, rather than how it is in the actual game where they just kinda make up for no reason. Ooh, we're getting dangerously close to Jak 2's story analysis there. Better save that for when I inevitably do a full Jak 2 video. Right now, we're talking about Dark Jak, and the real overhaul needs to come from the mechanical side of things. So for my biggest suggested changes, we're going to take inspiration from 2 plot points regarding Dark Jak that don't come up at all in his gameplay.
Something's happening to me. Something he did. I can't control it.
I sense there is a dark rage burning within you, and in time, it will destroy you with its madness.
So for the first point, I would make it so that transforming into Dark Jak is completely out of your control. Whenever your Dark Eco meter fills up, you transform immediately. This turns Dark Jak into a very different beast. It turns the entire concept into a game-wide risk-reward system. Do you go into a mission with an almost full Dark Eco meter and risk going dark in an uncomfortable place? Or do you go in with a low amount of Dark Eco and risk not having Dark Jak around if you need him? This would be compounded by the second big change, that Dark Jak now drains your health if you don't use it. Rather than go away on its own, Dark Jak stays until you either do enough attacks to drain the Dark Eco, or die. This would make the decision of how much eco you should carry into a mission a lot more impactful, because if you transform after all the enemies in a room are dead, you'll have to make a mad dash to try and find more, or risk dying. Jak 2 is already a very hard game, so to make this change work you'd probably also have to either throw more health packs around, or tie healing into the transformation in some way. like having attacks also restore health. That could add to the risk-reward setup. Actually, that sounds like a nice addition to Dark Jack as he currently exists. It would give the player a healing option and incentivize them to actually use Dark Mode. Anyway, those are the two big changes. But they also invite some other big changes that solve other problems. Like, the Dark Jack powers in 2 are kind of underwhelming. They made 2 separate room clearing moves. There's not a lot going on here creatively. But by giving Dark Jack these downsides, you can have the Oracle give you ways to mitigate them. I changed it so the first power you get is the invincibility. I've already mentioned that Dark Jack being melee only discourages using him against enemies with guns, and invincibility makes Dark Jack a lot more viable in those situations. It wouldn't stop the new self-damage though, because that's what the next power is for. I'd have it reduce the self-damage, give you more time as Dark Jack so that if things don't line up the way you wanted, you can actually fix it. The next power-up would be the Dark Giant, because it's just a lot of fun, and without the room-clearing powers, you'd actually have some reason to use it. The final power-up would basically be perfect control. You finally get the L2 button to transform into Dark Jack whenever you want, and the Dark Bomb as well, because let's face it, it's really cool and iconic. On a normal playthrough, you don't get the last power until post-game though, so you'd probably want to rebalance it so that you get it towards the end instead. That would help you feel yourself getting more control over these powers, and it would help put you in the head of Jack as he learns to live with his dark side at the same time you do. The other big change I would make is have it so that anything that dies in the game gives you Dark Eco, including killing civilians. This one serves both a gameplay mechanic and the tone of this new Dark Jack system. On the gameplay side, I think the driving in Jack has unexplored depth. The 2 hover zones mean there is literally an extra dimension to weaving through traffic fast. It's a lot of fun to try and not hit any pedestrians or cars while driving around, but there isn't actually a gameplay incentive to do that. There's no reason not to just stay on the ground and mow down everyone, because the guards don't care unless you hit them specifically. Which is good world building, but it also means that gameplay-wise, the only people you're trying not to hit with your car is the one group that Jack should really want to run over by the dozens. All the innocents are just so much collateral damage. With this new system though, killing civilians has an actual consequence. If you run someone over and that pushes you into Dark Jack, well, now you're a monster in a dense population zone. Remember, Dark Jack kills you unless you use it, so now your careless actions in driving are forcing you to either mindlessly kill innocent people, or to at least try and take it out on the Crimson Guard. Either way, you're likely to end up with a wanted level. This is also the embodiment of the new tone this Dark Jack system sets. It casts Dark Jack as a useful but dangerous creature. Any violence, even the kind you don't mean to do, can feed the monster. And if it takes over at the wrong time, the damage to both you and others could be catastrophic. It changes Dark Jack into something that constantly hangs over you, the player, just as much as it constantly hangs over Jack. It takes his internal conflict with the monster inside of him and pushes that burden onto the player. And that would definitely cause him to have more of an impact than just something you use every now and then when you're overwhelmed. So that's how I would have liked to see Dark Jack be handled. Before I leave though, I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to imply that Jak 2 is a terrible game and that I'm smarter than Naughty Dog. My system certainly has its problems. For one thing, the whole civilians giving you Dark Eco thing has the potential to do the opposite of what I said. It gives you a nice, easy way to farm Dark Eco if you want to have more during a mission, which exacerbates the problem Jak 2 already has with ludonarrative dissonance. Like, it's already kind of weird that the story can be about becoming more heroic while the player can, at any time, go out and murder a bunch of people. And giving an incentive for that behavior would just make that dissonance worse. It's also not really what I think Naughty Dog wanted Dark Jak to be. Yes, the story casts him as a burden on Jak, and I think putting that burden on the player is stronger thematically, but by pushing Dark Jak so hard in the marketing, I don't think Naughty Dog wanted him to feel like that. I think they wanted Dark Jak to be something you could just go crazy and have fun with, rather than giving the player a more complicated relationship with the idea. And that's fine, neither goal is inherently better, I just personally wish that Dark Jak felt more like a monster in gameplay. Also, it's really easy for me to sit here and have big ideas with 20 years of hindsight on Jak 2. I didn't have to come up with the idea from scratch or bring it to life within a deadline in the ways that Naughty Dog had to. I also have 20 years of other games clunking around in my head that nobody working on the game could have possibly had. You may have noticed that my ideas for Dark Jak are kind of similar to Hyper Mode in Metroid Prime 3, a game that didn't exist when Jak 2 was being made. So no, I'm not dunking on the game or the people who made it. I just think that it's interesting and valuable to look at systems that don't quite reach their fullest potential and think about how they could be changed to reach that potential. So with that said, what do you guys think about Dark Jak? How would you change him, and what criticisms do you have for the system that I proposed? Let me know in the comments. I've also made videos doing full analyses of the first 2 Legend of Zelda games, so please check those out if you're interested. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the future.